Yo guys, welcome back. My name is Nathan, and today we are going to be talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs, and of course their Game 7 loss versus the Montreal Canadiens, and how that could lead into some humongous moves potentially in this year's NHL offseason. Now, of course, if you've been living under a rock, you would know, or I guess not know, that the Habs beat the Leafs in 7, but this makes some major question marks appear for the Toronto Maple Leafs, a team that was so good during the regular season, had pretty much every core component really to a good spot. The defense was taken care of, the goaltending looked a lot better, but still found a way to lose in the first round, and they become the fourth team ever to lose 5 straight years in the first round. And it seems like for a lot of people at least, change is badly needed, not just in terms of the depth moves and what you see in the bottom 6, but in terms of the major players, guys like Mitch Marner, people have been talking about Alexander Nylander, and also players like Morgan Rielly that could possibly be on the move. But what trades could we see in this year's offseason? What is the most likely route for the Toronto Maple Leafs to take in this year's offseason? And what do the Leafs do to fix this entire mess? Watch till the end for all the trade rumors and all of the news, and hit that subscribe button if you are new. 60% of the people watching the videos are not subscribed, so every bit helps, and we make daily hockey content on this channel, so we'd love to have you in the Graviteh gang. Now, if you don't know, the rumors surrounding guys like Mitch Marner and William Nylander have been here for a pretty long time. Now, Nylander for pretty much 3 years, but especially with Mitch Marner, there wasn't really any trade rumors until after that Columbus Blue Jackets qualifying round loss last year, that there started to be some questions and started to be some trade rumors around him. Now, last year, during the offseason, Toronto was kind of rumored to maybe go in a ritual of sorts with their stars and have the potential of moving Mitch Marner for a defenseman. That was told by Elliot Friedman and other insiders as well, that a trade that way could be made. But instead, what the Leafs did was they kept all their core players, but built around them, got a better depth play, got a better depth system. Their defense was improved, the goaltending stepped up, and the Leafs the next regular season was very, very good. This regular season was a great season for Toronto. They had a lot more improvements, a lot more overall game, and we're looking to go into the playoffs as the main contender in the North Division, and especially with the division lineups this year and how they actually go into the playoffs, this was the best opportunity for Toronto, maybe ever, to go on to at least the conference finals and come out of the North Division. But obviously they went up 3-1 against Montreal. Montreal storms back and wins in 7 games. And even before the Leafs lost this game, I was already starting to see questions about potentially Mitch Marner even being traded, even if the Leafs won Game 7. But now that they've lost, things are a lot more difficult to pinpoint. Now, Mitch Marner is obviously the big one that could potentially be traded, but not just in terms of how good he is, but also the likelihood here. Because when we look at Marner's contract and actual play, there's a lot that I think some teams would be going after. Now, he is at a $10.9 million cap hit, and he does make that for the foreseeable future until 2025. So it is a pretty long contract, but when we look at the playoff performances so far for Marner, obviously for the Leafs it hasn't been great, but for Marner specifically, it's been even worse. When we look at the past 2 seasons, in 11 combined games, he has 0 goals, 8 assists for 8 points. And he has not had a goal in his last 18 playoff games. That's just absolutely egregious. And even for a playmaker like Mitch Marner, he still was on like a 30-goal pace this year in the regular season, still had a goal-scoring touch. But obviously during the playoffs, he missed the net a ton, enough to friggin' fill the hospital with pucks that got just abused on the glass. And it was how it went. I mean, especially in that Game 3, I believe, or Game 2, where Mitch Marner was, or actually, I think it might have been Game 1. The play, you know, that Marner was on 2-on-1. He was on the left side, a big-time one-timer, and then Carey Price saves it. It seemed like that was not only just how he was playing at that point, but it set the tone for the rest of his series and his perception with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, the confidence just was not there. You could tell with Marner as well that he was kind of succumbing to the pressure, and it was just kind of draining on his shoulders. And even in Game 7, I think he played better than the previous couple of games, but still, it wasn't where it needed to be, and still he ended up with 0 goals, 4 assists in 6 games played. Just simply not good enough to a guy who's making $10.9 million. Now, I think there are teams out there that would take that contract, but still, for a player that hasn't performed over the playoffs to this point, really? For $10 million, 10.9, almost 11, you're not going to see many contending teams taking a contract like that on. Now, another thing we did here after last offseason, especially when the Leafs kind of rebuilt around their core players, was that if they were to lose again in the first round or heaven forbid miss the playoffs or something, then there might actually finally be a core piece traded off the Maple Leafs. And even though that contract is a lot at 10.9, that's still a contract that when you look at the performance, Marner was easily the most disappointing star player for the Maple Leafs during this playoff run. And there's the same thing going on last season. He was underwhelming then, even more underwhelming this playoff series. But when you look at the teams that actually might be even able to take him, it's mostly teams at the bottom of the barrel, teams that won't be able to be in the playoffs. And I can see the argument of trading against or trading for Nylander, or the argument against it, saying he doesn't play well in the playoffs. But I think there's going to be a lot of teams out there that look at the skill level, look at how many points he got, and was top 10 in scoring, so he's actually pretty good at hockey still, and see that there can be that talent in the playoffs eventually. But when you look at it, a team like the Tampa Bay Lightning is never going to trade for Mitch Marner, obviously, because of cap hit and because they don't really need him. But when you look at some of the bottom feeder teams like New Jersey, teams like maybe LA, I mean, LA's been interested in Seth Jones. Mitch Marner will be an amazing fit on that team. I think you're going to see a team in the bottom half of the standings who has the cap space being interested in him. We've also saw rumors in the past of Minnesota and Columbus maybe factoring into potential offer sheets with Mitch Marner. That could also circle back to this next offseason and make it even more interesting for the Mitch Marner sweepstakes. I think for Toronto, I think there's about a 50-50 chance that it does actually happen, but if we're being real here, again, I think what's most likely is Toronto sees what Tampa did after their loss against Columbus. They'll probably end up staying as much as possible with the current core they have, keeping guys like Marner, keeping guys like Matthews, and just hoping that the maturity and the playoff experience gets to a level where it can finally get consistent scoring going. Now, with Mitch Marner, that might take a couple of years because he looks to be far away from that, and that might be the biggest reason why the Leafs might end up trading him this offseason. $10.9 million is not nothing, and the Leafs, especially trading him, could get a quality defenseman back. Now, there might be some rumors out there about a Mitch Marner and Seth Jones trade. I doubt Toronto does that unless they have a great reclamation project for Seth Jones. They're able to turn him back into a number one defenseman, but I think it might be out there, and especially to get at least a top four defenseman, a first round pick, potentially back in a great prospect, that will be pretty much the start for Mitch Marner, and I could see a couple of teams at least taking that on, or at least attempting to take that on. And I've seen the idea floated around as well that Mitch Marner and Jack Eichel 1-for-1 might be a trade. I doubt Buffalo does that at this point, but crazier things have happened, and that would definitely make this offseason quite interesting. Then you could have Jack Eichel as the second line center, maybe John Tavares on the wing. That could actually be pretty interesting, I think. But going on to the other player mentioned as well in the title, or we have actually two left, but in the middle, we have William Nylander. And this, to me, is the most confusing one out of the playoff trade rumors, because obviously we know how many trade rumors William Nylander has been involved in, whether it be around his contract, the offer sheets, and what was going on during his contract negotiations. That could also spill into this next offseason. But if we're being honest, people have been talking about his contract being the most tradable, and that is true, but it's only because he's been as good as he has been. William Nylander has been a fantastic player for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and especially in this year's playoffs, was their best forward, bar none. Not even a question. Not even just looking at points, but in terms of the actual production and the play and the cycle and the possession, it was all so good compared to the rest of the Leafs team that was just left in the dust. To me, there is no way the Toronto Maple Leafs trade William Nylander unless it's for an absolutely crazy package, because if we're being honest, he's really the only one that truly showed up this year, and if Toronto trades him, don't think that's going to go over too well. And if you said that trading Nylander wouldn't go over well for a lot of Leafs fans a couple of years ago, to me, I would have been baffled. I mean, it's a completely different universe now, and I'm really happy that Nylander, at least at this point, pretty much has a secured spot with the Leafs next year. I doubt they end up getting rid of him. But it also leads us to another interesting player on the Leafs, and that is, of course, Morgan Rielly on the defense. Now, personally, I didn't think that Morgan Rielly was that bad during this playoff run. He got 3 points in 7 games played. Definitely not what you want to see in terms of production, but in terms of the power play ability, setting things up, and actually defensively, I don't really think he was that bad during the playoffs. And I think he's a guy that Toronto could also keep, but I think he's a lot more potentially movable just because of the contract you're looking at. Right now, Morgan Rielly, he makes $5 million this season, and next season. So he will be a UFA after next year. Could potentially be a guy that with 1 year left, a lot of teams look for, especially that $5 million cap hit, and look to potentially make a trade there happen. Now, again, if the Toronto Maple Leafs really want to add scoring, especially playoff scoring, and a team wants Morgan Rielly back, I don't think that's the craziest thing to see in the world, especially with guys like Sandin and players on that defense taking strides offensively that could maybe fill the shoes of Morgan Rielly. I do also doubt that it does happen, but again, crazier things have happened in the offseason. And a guy like Morgan Rielly, who again could shed quite a bit of cap off and could get at least some quality options back, I don't think would be the worst thing in the world. Now, I do think it would be a loss unless they were to actually just replace him thoroughly, but I don't know. I think we could at least actually do something pretty crazy here. If they do trade Morgan Rielly, let's say, it could be a cap dump trade, and maybe they go after a guy like Dougie Hamilton. I'm just spitballing right here, but if you want to get an offensive defenseman, Dougie Hamilton, not a terrible choice, and obviously would cost a lot more than Morgan Rielly, but it would be one heck of a shakeup and one that power play, one that offense could, in the end, badly need. Now, again, I do want to make it known that I am completely spitballing with the Dougie Hamilton thing, but again, when we look at this Leafs team, there's just so much that could potentially change, but also at the same time, what do you change? Because when you look at the playoff series, it was the lack of great scoring, it was lack of top-end scoring, just being there and being a lack thereof. And when you look at the roster itself, it was constructed pretty solidly. They should have won versus the Toronto Maple Leafs, but it seemed like inside the locker room, inside the heads of the Leafs, that were the problem. I mean, honestly, the Leafs, their best option in this offseason might be to just not train anybody and maybe just hire a therapist or two. I mean, what could hurt, really? What could hurt? Especially come playoff time where it seems like Matthews, guys like Marner need some rest, need some comfort. And when you look at the way guys like Matthews and Marner played, how they looked on the bench, how they looked in the penalty box, Marner especially, they were just distraught because they know how much pressure is on them. They know how much rides on this. And when you're Mitch Marner specifically, it definitely seemed like he kind of thought this might be his last series with the Leafs. He tried, it seemed like he was trying as much as humanly possible while also not trying at all. So it's a pretty weird dynamic, but the Leafs have a lot to do here. Again, when it comes to the UFAs, they got Riley Nash, Zach Hyman, Wayne Simmons, Nick Foligno, Alex Galchenyuk, Spezza, Thornton on the defense, Hutton, Sandin is an RFA after next year. You got Dermott as an RFA, Marincin as a UFA, and Freddie Anderson as a UFA. There is so much that really Kyle Dubas can be busy with this offseason. But again, that question of what do you change, to me, it's inside. To me, it's in that locker room that needs some serious change. Whether it be, again, hiring a therapist or something, or just being a little bit different. I really have no advice for Kyle Dubas. This is exactly the worst spot he could have possibly ever been. Because, again, I think in terms of the cap and in terms of the management, he did very, very well in this past offseason, add some great pieces to that team. But still, in the end, did not work. The Leafs should be one of the most interesting and maybe the most interesting team of this offseason. And if they trade a guy like Marner, trade a guy like Nylander, trade a guy like Rielly, big changes will obviously come to Toronto that way. I, again, don't have any advice for Toronto. I think in the end, they should probably keep some of the same team as much as possible. Just get something better in Marner and Matthews' brain. Just take their brains, maybe put them out for another brain, and just hope for the best. That's honestly the best I can think of, because it just seemed like it was a mental barrier that keeps the Leafs from success in the playoffs. Maybe they rest Marner's and Matthews a ton next season. That might be the way they go, because this is obviously not working and major changes could be coming. But that'll be pretty much it for today, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this kind of random discussion video, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit that notification bell to get notified on when we go live for new videos. Comment down below your thoughts on the Toronto Maple Leafs right now. Do you guys think they should blow it up? Do you guys think they should keep the same roster? Who do they trade? Who do they keep? Let me know your thoughts. And, of course, share this video with your friends. Get the Leafs misery out there, I guess. Get this to every Leafs fan. And make sure you click on this card right here to watch all of my hockey rankings content right in one playlist. My name is Nathan, and thanks so much for watching. And I'm just so sorry, Leafs fans. I'll see you in the next video or stream, though. Goodbye.